You're listening to the Black Eagles podcast with Sinan Schwarting and Kaan Bayazit.
Ahmet Dursun Sergen aldı. Sergen Bülent yan yana. Sergen Bülent. Sergen. Yanında Tümer var. Tümer'e doğru aksın kaybetti. Tümer topu aldı. Sergen aldı. Gol! Gol! Gol! Sergen attı. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi.
İbrahim'in pası. Roma. Şimdi Ahmet. İkinci gole gidiyor Beşiktaş. Ahmet. Ve
Hello, Black Eagles, and welcome back to watching our show, watching the Black Eagles podcast. When we scheduled this, none of us, I think, realized that the opening game of the Euros would be on right now. So I think all three of us have it up in the background, and also had to rush Sinan home because we kind of miscommunication on the timing. Guys, thanks for joining me despite the Euros opening. Sinan, how was your getting to the house and to the show event or process? Yeah, I agree. I get you. Kartal, you were telling me an interesting story beforehand. So Germany-Scotland's going on right now, of course, and you were telling me something interesting about your grandpa. I don't know if you want to tell it online.
Yeah, no, I'll say it on air. Like, I mean, of course, being half Scottish and being born and raised in Glasgow, I always want the Scottish national team to win, but I've never really been like dead passionate about it, like I'm passionate about Beşiktaş. But just before this game was starting, I was just telling my wife, she knows this anyway, but my grandfather on my Scottish side, my Scottish grandfather was in the Navy in the Second World War, was on a minesweeper. So because of that, he always had a bit of a dislike for the Germans, and I lost my grandfather a few years ago. And I was just thinking, it'd be nice if Scotland could win this game for him, but they've already conceded, so it's not looking too good just now. But that got me a wee bit hyped and a wee bit emotional before the game, just thinking about my late grandfather. But yeah,
that's a wonderful story, man. To have that to think about, and hopefully the Scots do something this tournament at least.
Hopefully, I mean, I'm not holding out for much, but hopefully they're able to do something.
Oh, is that the 2002 one? Oh, that's a great one. Yeah, Adidas better than the Nike ones, I think. Although I mean, I like the Nike ones. They're simplistic and nice, but yeah. Let's get into the episode, right? So let's talk about the Euros very briefly. So the Euros are starting, of course, and three of our players, as you can see to the right of my big fat head. Our three guys at the Euros, Cenk Tosun, Semih Kılıçsoy, and Mert Günok, are of course going to the Euros, and we want to wish them all the best. This is of course a Beşiktaş podcast. We will give you updates if any of our players do particularly well. Of course, Ernest Muçi is also active at the Euros for Albania. And then I have to think we have four players at the Euros, so that's our four players. So the three Turks and Ernest Muçi. So if any of our guys do well at the Euros, we'll be sure to let you know. But we just wanted to say good luck to the guys and to the national team, of course. And hopefully Semih gets some opportunities. We did see him in the friendly game earlier this week against Poland that Turkey lost 2-1. He played the first 45 minutes. maybe quick thoughts on that, guys. I don't know if you watched it. Sinan, did you watch the game? Oh. Oh dear. There we go. That should fix it then.
For the
Hopefully
masses.
Hopefully they don't get double sound this time.
Is that? Do you hear me now?
Without double sound, hopefully.
Well, let's just pretend like they hear me and run off of that. I'll hand the question off to Kartal as I sort that out.
Yeah. Well, I can hear you perfectly fine, but like last time, because we were doing double sound, I turned one of the feeds off. So you can hear us now. So hopefully it works properly. Kartal, what about you? How did you watch the game, the Turkey-Poland game?
I did not really, to be honest. I kind of watched it in glimpses. Every now and then I had a look at it. To be honest with you, I've been quite disenfranchised with the national team since the last Euros, to be honest. I've found it hard to really get behind them after that last tournament, and especially after what happened with Semi in March. So, I mean, I watched the games in the tournament, but for the friendlies and stuff like that, I just struggled to get into them, to be honest with you. I mean, from what I've read, it seems like Semi didn't have too great a game, but although there is a caveat to that, where
didn't touch the ball,
Arda Güler, who's the best creator on the team, by the time he came on, Semi was already taken off. And there was also some clips I saw where Semi was actually in great positions and he didn't receive the ball. So it seems like maybe his teammates could have done better in providing him.
Yeah, I feel the exact same thing. You know, I find it very difficult to have much sympathy for the national team right now, especially also, you know, because I feel like there's a lot of gaslighting going on Twitter and online by rival fans regarding Semi. Like I mean, as if it wouldn't have been a massive deal if Semi was their player and was treated the way he was treated. And then I feel like against Poland, it just felt like they. I mean, even in those 10 minutes that he played the previous friendly, like it feels like nobody was passing to him. And in this game, there were a couple of opportunities. Like he was very invisible for the most part. He didn't play bad because he barely touched the ball. But if you like highlight some of his runs and that kind of stuff, like there's a position early in the first half where Irfan Can has the ball on the right, and if he squares it, Semi is unmarked in the center, and he could have scored, but he goes for glory himself. And then every time Kerem Aktürkoğlu had the ball, Kerem does what he does, and he's a very selfish player, and he goes for glory himself. But then there's that one position where Semi gets himself into a shooting position, and Kerem just bulldozes him basically and steals the ball and shoots himself. And it's like, yeah, you're not doing the kid any favors by putting him on the pitch with those players, I think. No knock on Kerem Aktürkoğlu. Kerem Aktürkoğlu, of course, has his qualities, but that's not a winger that's going to provide you with goals. Like, of course, yeah, he's got some assists on Icardi this season, but let's be honest, if he didn't give those balls to Icardi, then he wouldn't be playing for Galatasaray anymore at this point. I mean, they already dropped him from the team for the last month and a half or something to begin with. But like, yeah, it's just I don't know. Like, there's no Arda connecting the midfield to the attack. There's no Kenan connecting the midfield to the attack. So it was only Kerem Aktürkoğlu and Irfan Can, and then Hakan Çalhanoğlu and Orkun were just too deep. So who was gonna give the balls? Like, there were a couple of good balls, like one or two in the first half, and that's pretty much it. And I would have liked to see Semi given an opportunity, because I mean, look, Semi is not a striker you need to put on the 9 and then have him on an island. He's not a target man, you know? Like, he's not that type of striker. He needs to be involved in the combination. So you need players like Arda and Kenan around him, not long balls and all that kind of stuff. So I don't think they did him any favors, and then I'm yoinking him at halftime was also kind of a dick move. I felt like, I think give him at least 15 to 20 minutes with Arda on the pitch. See how that goes. So I don't have too much expectations for Semi in these Euros, to be quite frank. I doubt he'll play much. Hopefully he'll get 10 to 15 minutes per game. I'll be very happy with that. And let's be honest, this isn't Semi's Euros, right? He's 18. This is not his tournament yet. Like, that'll come in 2 or 4 years. Like, let him get used to it a little bit, but give him a taste. I don't want it to be Nihat in 2002, where he didn't get a single minute of playing time.
My rebuttal to that, though, Kaan, is whose Euros is it then if it's not Semis? Because do we really have a realistic alternative to play in that position just now?
BAY.
They're gonna shoehorn.
Alper,
they're gonna shoehorn Barış Alper Yilmaz in there, and they're gonna.
The guy's not a striker though.
No, he's not.
He scored in the last game. He's not a striker.
They are gonna justify it with his goal now. Lucky deflection. Yeah. But yeah, he's got a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. I think Barış Alper is a great player, but play him in his position. Play him on the wing, or play him even at fullback, because he's very good at those. But he's a winger. Play him right midfield, right forward, right back.
We're short of a right back as well. Yeah. The national team doesn't have a proper Zeki Çelik was expected to be the next Gürkan Gürkan, but he's just not panned out that way. No. He's nowhere near as lethal going forward as Gürkan was. So I think Barış Alper could be that guy at right back. I think you play Barış Alper at right back, play Semi up front, and let's have a proper go at it. I just don't agree with just because he's 18 he can't play. He's the only on-form striker that's available.
But this is also
we've got Cenk Tosun.
Yeah, but this is also why what happened in March was such a dick move, because those 2 games were the opportunities to actually give Semi the platform to build some chemistry with some teammates. And look, he has chemistry already with Arda. You know, those guys know each other going way back from the youth teams. Yeah. So put him on the pitch with somebody he's comfortable with, rather than Kerem Aktürkoğlu. And I mean, again, no hate on Kerem, but that's just not the partner for Semi up top. If you're gonna play with very deep laying playmakers, Orkun and Hakan, and no Arda, then you have to put Semi on the wing. If you want Semi as the striker, then you need to have Arda in the team at least, and Kenan as well, preferably. 2 guys who love the ball at their feet, and who will look at the second half when Arda came on. The game changed completely, because suddenly we had the ball in and around the area constantly, and it was a lot more threat. And then you have people online it's Barış Alper. No, Barış Alper didn't make the difference. Barış Alper just plucked the rewards from having Arda on the pitch. That's just the difference. Right now, Arda is going to make or break Turkey's Euros. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. Is İrfan Can Kahveci fit?
There was some talk about him getting dropped from the squad. Yeah, but there was some talk about him having an injury now and not going to the Euros, actually. I haven't
really?
the latest on that.
I probably would have played him on the right, Kenan on the left, Semi up front, and Arda behind him. I think that'd be...
I think you can play with Arda, Kenan really close behind Semi, as a little triangle up top. Not necessarily have Kenan and Arda as wingers, and then have your fullback. Have Barış Alper on the right, have Ferdi on the left, and you have those 2 really good offensive fullbacks to go up and down those wings. And then you just make sure you have a very strong midfield that can help out in defense. And I mean, that could work as well. But as you've talked about, you've got 2 great offensive fullbacks there. But more importantly for bombing up and down, the 2 of them have great motors. Are 2 very fit players that have got great stamina. So I think that could work as well. You could play as them in a triangle, and then you could maybe have a midfield of Sarı Özcan, Orkun, and Hakan Çalhanoğlu. So that could be another solution as well. That was a good point you made there, Kaan. Anyway, I think we all kind of have the same feeling, don't we? I mean, I want to. Of course, I want to support Turkey, but like, it's just so difficult, man. Sometimes they make it so difficult, especially as a Beşiktaş fan. It just feels like you always get like the Galatasaray players, the Fenerbahçe players always get preferential treatment. And then like you get gaslighted online because you dare to say something about Simi, when that's one of the biggest scandals that has happened to the national team in recent memory. So let's move on to some fun talk, man. Let's stop talking about this stuff.
Well, one thing I do want to say about Semi, though, and it's sort of piggybacking on your point earlier about how people make these sort of disingenuous points about him. And like one of the things I see often is people will be like, "Oh, they pick Semi and they show his stats. You know, he played in this amount of games, he scored this amount of goals, had this amount of assists," and it's like, you know, comparing him to other strikers that weren't called up, and it's like,
no,
first
it's
of
not
all,
even strikers. So like what you're referring to is the Oğuz Aydın, right, from Alanyaspor, and their president linked the stats from Oğuz and Can Uzun, and then Simi to like say they called up Simi but not these two guys.
I've seen Trabzon fans doing it with Enis Destan as well for a while, and it's just very disingenuous because it doesn't factor in that like many of those appearances were when he was literally making his very first appearance.
And he doesn't even win the stat battle. He doesn't even come close. He has like 5 goals or
I
something.
know. And the point they try to make is like, despite playing in all these games, he didn't, put up monster stats.
The reality is, Semi
really
scored 11 league goals in just over half a season. Most years in Turkey, that gets you a golden boot if you do that over 2 halves of a season. True or false?
His match
goal per minute stats are really good for Semi. Obviously, I mean his stats are just really good. You can't even even if you like it just comes across as so unserious if you compare Oğuz Aydın and Can Uzun, who both played full seasons, by the way, and their stats are ridiculously close to Simi's. Like they're not even like there's barely a gap. Like Simi has 12 goals, 4 assists. I think Oğuz Aydın has like 14 goals and I don't know, 7 assists or something, and then Can Uzun has 16 goals and 2 assists or something like that. Yeah. So they're all 3 of those are super close. Like if you're gonna make that point, that's a fair point, by the way. Those 2 guys deserve to go to the Euros, but don't use Simi as your fucking scapegoat. Use Yunus Akgün, who has 1 goal and 2 assists all season. Use those types of players. Hey, let's have a look at Kerem Aktürkoğlu's stats. I'm not saying he shouldn't have gone, but Kerem Aktürkoğlu doesn't come close to those guys. Doesn't come close to Simi in terms of assists and goals. You know, like there's a lot of players in the team that don't come close.
And the main point I'm trying to make is that his match appearances number is massively inflated by the fact that he was literally making his very first appearance as a
substitute appearances.
Yeah, I would probably guess that a good half of them were substitute appearances, and then among those, probably half of those are like garbage time. You know, his literal first
started playing as a starter. Oh, I need to show you guys something, by the way. I'm gonna show off for a second. But yeah, like he didn't start playing properly until December until the Hatay game. I think that was his league debut as a starter. He had made his league debut the season before, but that was as a substitute, of course. And then, of course, he had made his starting debut in Europe against Tirana. But, that was his league debut against Hatay, I think. Okay, let me show you. I've been hunting this for a while, and you guys know I'm a big shirt collector, right? So my friend finally hooked me up with something really special. Wait, let me show you. So I really figured I needed a proper. You see?
Oh, there
it is.
There we go,
nice,
bro.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Par for the collection. Hopefully.
Safe to say you won't be fitting into that shirt.
I will definitely not be fitting into that. Have you seen my muscles, bro?
You just made me do a spit take, man.
That shirt's probably a small.
Probably a safe bet.
I don't know.
A safe bet.
I don't know, man. Simi's pretty buff, so I would imagine
he's
got a pretty good.
At least a medium.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
He's also not small. He's like 5 foot. 11 or something. So it's not like
he's
tiny.
he's taller than he looks on the TV, to be honest. If that's the case.
Yeah, and he's pretty muscular as well. So I mean,
it'll probably be at least a medium. Then I was a bit harsh saying a smaller, extra small.
yeah. I mean, even if I would lose a bunch of weight, I wouldn't fit into that probably. I just don't have the build for a medium. Anyway, let's move on. Giovanni van Bronckhorst, guys.
Cheers,
He is our new coach. We already talked about it previously, but Gio has arrived in Istanbul yesterday and signed his contract today during a press conference. Let's move over to our little subject area here, and I've got our cameras set up here and a bunch of pictures from the signing ceremony today. Guys, I don't know if you had time to watch. I don't know when you started working today, Kartal. Did you have time to watch the ceremony?
Yeah, I did. I did listen to all of it, but I kind of lost concentration while I was getting like set up for work and stuff like that. But I did focus on most of it. Yeah. The initial part I did watch in full, but I did kind of passively listen to all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. What did you guys think of it? Sinan, did you manage to catch it?
I got bits. You know, the little clips where they didn't. You know, where you could actually hear him speaking in English without the translator of it. So I got bits and pieces. Yeah. It's. I hate that they do that, but I guess it makes sense, right? I know. Yeah.
It's just to save time.
So, I mean, it's even in foreign movies, like I prefer to hear the real voices and then see the dub. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I know
but
how they deliver it. You know,
live dubbing, live subtitles is probably
of course.
harder to do.
Although you think maybe in this age of AI, anyway, I don't know. I mean, anyway, point being, I got bits and pieces, but I mean, it's everything we expected, right? He seems like a super classy guy.
Yeah.
He seems really kind of excited and committed, you know.
Yeah, it did seem very excited.
It was also mentioned that I mean, Hassan Arat, the president, mentioned as well, like he's watched all the games over the last 6 months.
Yeah.
And it was a really good presentation. I thought they had this special scarf design, especially for him, t-shirts design, especially for him with a GVB logo in the Beşiktaş silhouette.
Yeah, that was cool.
Look really cool. I don't know if it'll sell much. I mean, look, it's a coach. If it would have been like, you know, like someone like Sergen, then you would think merch will sell. I don't know if Giovanni van Bronckhorst merch will sell. I hope it does. So. I think it's a great design, but I don't think it's something that's going to sell.
Yeah. Unless they keep it in stock till next season and we win the league, it will sell out. But not until then.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there you go.
Exactly.
Well, and the important thing is that as far as the gesture goes, it shows that the club is obviously very excited about his arrival.
Yeah, and serious about it.
That we're kind of committed to him. That we're doing this kind of branding for his arrival, right? Like it definitely, I think. It shows that there's a two-way. I mean, that was actually what I took away, was that it seemed like both sides were genuinely excited about this adventure, And so for all that's worth, right? Like, it's great to see, even for management. Even look at Hassan Arat, look at that smile. he seemed like genuinely to like the guy that he was introducing.
Of course, but like the thing with Hassan Arat as well is like he dwarfs people, man. Like everyone looks so tiny next to him.
Even Brad Friedel, who's a goalkeeper, looks small next to him.
Yeah, that's true, man. Hassan Arat is just such he definitely a gentle giant, I think. Although Sercan Dikme did not experience him being a gentle giant for sure. He got bitch slapped. Hassan Arat said during the press conference, essentially, he said like, Sercan, you seem to know more than we do with all the news you're putting out. Like basically saying you're talking a lot of shit, mate. Stop talking so much shit.
I love that. That because you get the sense too that he's kind of lost the plot, right? Like he obviously had the inner connection for a while, but he's been missing more than he's been hitting for a few months.
I kind of have a double feeling about it now. Like I always feel like Sercan tries to be very respectful, at least. He was a little hard. I mean, he was pretty harsh on Santos at some point, but rightfully so as well. Yeah. It's not like
And that turned out to be
like
right.
like Firat Günayer. I really thought was just being a prick from the get-go. As soon as the board said we're cutting you guys off. But Sercan, like, you know, at the end of the day, I think he is a Beşiktaş fan. But I have to say, like, look, this is what I mean. I've said this before, right? Sports Digital, what they're doing, I think, is great. You know, I think what Yaz does is fantastic because he has great sources. And when you have great sources, what Sports Digital is doing is great. But then when you've got Sercan and Firat doing their daily Beşiktaş show, and they don't have a lot of inside information at the moment, then you're gonna get fanatic online, right? You're gonna get a lot of bullshit getting thrown at the wall because they have to fill up their show. There's a reason why we do one show a week, because we can't fill up a daily show, you know? Like, you can't do
and I was gonna say, like, we've even, I mean, luckily we haven't struggled yet, but like historically, right? You know, when we were just doing the audio podcast, there are those months where it's kind of like, well, let's figure out something to talk about for an hour, you know? And that's like with doing it once a week, right? Can you imagine doing it daily? Like, you kind of have to start tossing shit at the wall just to kind of stay relevant, just to get people to watch. So it's an annoying product of like the media landscape in general right now. Like, even the news is kind of like that, you know? There's nothing I hate more than seeing like breaking news, and it's like some shit that's been reported for 2 days. It's like, all right, man, just
man,
like relax.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, it's a very, I understand, like, people hate on him. At the end of the day, it's how he makes his money. It's the job he chose, and yeah, it's disingenuous, you know, of course, if you go and you talk shit. But on the other hand, like, he has to fill up his show, man. It's difficult. I understand why he does it. I'm not saying it's what he should be doing, but like, I understand where it's coming from, you know?
Yeah.
Anything that jumped out to you guys from the Gio van Bronckhorst presentation, other than the cool gear they had for him?
I quite liked how Hassan Arat kind of was talking about Gio's foundation. Basically,
I loved that. I loved that. Yeah.
So he basically,
and even involving his wife Marieke, who of course they have the Gio Foundation together, and they do a lot of work with kids. I thought that was amazing.
And he was talking about how he could further that in Turkey with the Beşiktaş and Beşiktaş's fans, because saying basically how Beşiktaş fans are always very generous, always willing to help, always willing to do the right thing. So he's talking about how him and Gio and Beşiktaş are like a match made in heaven in that regard, in terms of the personality. So that was a thing I really liked. I mean, other than that, it just seems like the guy's done his homework. He's came here already. He's been watching us.
I was going to say, that's an important point, and we talked about it last week. The kind of club culture, right? Like our club's values, that aspect of things. And I really, like, you talk about how he clearly did his homework and he knew what he was coming into. They talked about how he watched us for the 6 months, you know, since our first approach and all that. And one wonders, like, maybe the club values really were a not insignificant part of why he wanted to come, right? Given the foundation, given maybe his own, you know, ideology or whatever it may be. I got that sense too, you know, when there was that. Like, again, that was a little harder for me to understand because that was, you know, cut off often. But I felt I wondered, like, you know, maybe there's more than just, you know, Giovanni van Bronckhorst needed a job in football, right? Like, he seemed a little more excited than your typical hire in that sense.
Yeah.
So maybe he feels like aligned with the club's values or whatever it might be.
What I liked as well, there was one thing that Gio kept talking about, and do you know what that was, guys? He mentioned this time and time again. It was tactical flexibility.
I was gonna
tactical flexibility, which is very important. Like, you're going to be best prepared when you're flexible in what you're dealing with. You know what I mean? Like, if you play Alanyaspor, they're not going to play the same way as Eyüpspor or Başakşehir or Kasımpaşa. Every team plays differently. So the fact that he keeps talking about tactical flexibility gives me the confidence that he's going to analyse every opponent and have a unique tailored approach to every opponent whilst continuing his philosophy at the same time. So that makes me feel good that well, it feels like we're always going to be prepared for everything we face. I mean, you don't hear a lot of managers talking about that as much. Normally it's just my way or the highway. But the fact that he's shown that he can adapt to the opponent and to what he's got with his squad, I think that's very, very valuable. Because a lot of people would
abandoning his philosophy, of course, he has a very clear plan of how he wants to play, and obviously, he's going to adapt to opponents when necessary. But that's also something that came back in the...
noting too.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. It's worth noting that the gap in talent, right, between like a newly promoted Super League side and, let's say we get to the knockout rounds of the Europa League, right? That the gap between those talents is so vast that you really need a large degree of flexibility, right? Yeah. And I feel like we've lacked that. Santos obviously played too defensive against everyone, and you could probably say the same for Valérien.
I mean, did he really play defensive? I think it was more the case of. I felt like it was more like there wasn't a clear, like you couldn't see what he was always saying the right things in the post-match interviews and stuff, but you couldn't really tell what his plan was. I felt.
Yeah, there was no offensive organisation. It was just like go and play. That's what it felt like. It felt like there was no.
I mean, there was a lot of like patiently sort of spending time with the ball on the back, and then we'd see the press, and then they'd hoof it up.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say, what was the patience? They just knocked it up the park.
Yeah. Well, that's they would hold on to it too long, and then obviously I'm not defending Santos, but
Santos, I felt like there was no idea, and that's what I've had almost the entire season, even with Chinol.
Well, and I was gonna say, because remember the game that I attended, right, the first match of the season against Pendikspor, which we ended up drawing. Mm-hmm. It was like same thing, right? We were approaching them in the same way that we basically approached Kiev, and that we would go on to approach everyone else for that pretty torrid stretch at the beginning of the season. And it was the same, right? Like you have to be able to approach those sides differently, especially like Pendikspor, who has just come up to the Super League. You have to be able to kind of punch them in the face right out of the gate. You
have to grab them by the scruff of the neck, and you have to squeeze their windpipe, man. Like you have to suffocate those types of teams, especially at home. Like you have to, impress your will upon them. You can't. Yeah. And then I'm not saying that Giovanni van Bronckhorst is going to go out and out and overwhelm every opponent and all that kind of stuff, but it is something that came back from the interview with Nicky van der Gijp, is that he has a very clear way he wants to play. It's relatively easy for him to implement, and that's also something he said in his press conference. He said because one of the questions was, you've won a lot of trophies, but with Feyenoord it was a process, before you won the league. It took 2 seasons, and the question was, will it take you a long time to get the team where it needs to be? And he said, well, it's something that can go really quickly. Yeah, exactly, it can go really quickly, but obviously it depends, and this is not something he says, something I'm saying. Obviously it depends on the team you're able to build. Yeah. If you bring in a lot of good quality players, look at Galatasaray and Fenerbahce. Galatasaray 2 years ago, when they put their team together essentially over a summer period and won the league. And then Fenerbahce did the same thing this past summer. They put together a really strong team. Didn't win the league, but they got 99 points. And that's something
one thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I don't want to let go of this point, especially because we're going to probably start talking about potential transfers and stuff of that, of that nature soon. And we've already in our group chat heard a lot of pushback against the idea of bringing in older players. And I as much as I obviously agree, you've got to balance that out. You've got to do what's right for the club financially. You have to bring in guys who you can, sell in the future, make more money off of, and develop and all that. Yeah. If you really want to see a quick turnover, there's probably no better way than to get in a solid core of probably 5. Maybe 6, veterans, solid veterans.
You have to get some. You have to have the balance of youthly enthusiasm and experience. And
exactly.
I think that's something Gio said as well. And I think we're gonna be calling him Gio for the most part, right, guys? Like, there's no need, But like, that's something Gio said as well. Like, you have to find the balance between experience and those players who have arrived already, who are already there, but also players who are developing, who are coming to put their nose at the window. And he also mentioned about transitioning young players from the academy to the team, and he also mentioned guys that were already there, like Semi, of course, as the prime example, but then also getting in new guys involved and that kind of stuff. And Giovanni van Bronckhorst also talked about the fact that he is a winner. He has won a lot of trophies in a relatively short career. We talked about this last week, but 5 trophies in 4 years with Feyenoord. A trophy and a European final in a full year at Glasgow Rangers. So he is somebody that's used to winning trophies. And that's something he came to do here as well. It said that's my ambition. I want to win trophies with this club, the trophies the club deserves. But yeah, it's all going to come down to whether or not the club is able to build a proper team. But from what I gathered from the press conference, it does really seem like the team that is going to be built is very much a group effort. It's not just the board buying a bunch of players. They emphasize that Giovanni van Bronckhorst has a lot of input. Brad Friedel has a lot of input. There's obviously, we're going to talk about the role that Brad Friedel's going to have at the club in a bit, but like, it does look like it's a puzzle fitting together, and hopefully, of course, these aren't just empty words, and that's what we're going to get to see. Anything else that jumped out to you guys from the press conference other than that?
I mean, one thing I would say is that it seems like Gio's very tight-lipped when it comes to transfers with the press, because numerous journalists asked him about incoming transfers, and for all of them, he said, "Oh, look, you're not going to see me talking about transfers. That's Brad and the board that are going to deal with that more than me. They'll speak about that more than me." What I found was interesting about the presser, not really so much about Gio, but it was more about Brad. Although he's not got that title, director of football, he really seems that's what he's been brought in to do, because he says he's going to create the scout network. He's going to be in charge of bringing in the players and selling players while working together with Hussein Eugene and Kaan Bayazit, who's the board of directors in charge of finance. So it makes sense why he'd be working with Brad, because he's the one that's managing the money, so he'll be the one saying, "Look, you've got this much money to go and spend." Hussein Eugene, it makes sense as well, because he's said to be putting in money to sign players.
He's the guy who can say, "Okay, this is our budget, but I'll throw in 5 million extra, and we can get this guy."
I'm just hoping Hussein Eugene doesn't go on any power trips and goes above Brad and doing anything, because for me, what's going to determine if this is going to work or not with Brad Friedel is he going to be given the space to do his job, or are the board of directors going to get involved and tell him, "No, you can't do this, you can't do that"? Because I think we all remember the horror story with Serkan Rizpir back in 2018. He was with us for a couple of months. I had Orkun Kukcu, who's now a star for our national team, plays for Benfica. Had him all but signed for like 1 million. And then Umut Gunnar, who was one of the board of directors, then got involved and said, "Look, stay in your lane, you're meant to deal with youth." That is me that does the transfers, and they lost out on a phenomenal player. And we're still, like 6 years later, we're still saying, "Oh, what if Orkun came?"
Yeah, and it's not just that,
you forgot about Ferdi too.
Yeah, exactly. There's also the horror story about Ferdi as well,
that wasn't so much with Serkan, but I think that was Baki.
No, but that was
a Baki scenario.
Yeah, but that was also Umut Gunnar essentially giving Baki Mercimek the reins
and
to
franchising
do that.
him.
Why? Why did you? He doesn't work for the club.
Yeah.
So they literally gave him Volmacht. How do you say that in English? Power of attorney,
free reign,
essentially, something like that.
They
essentially gave him like, you go and do this, and Baki tried to position it to get Ferdi to become his client, which got us to miss out on an amazing player. So we missed out on both Orkun and Ferdi because of that board, because of Umut Gunnar. And if we would have had someone like Serkan Reçber in charge making those important decisions, somebody would actually, a brain for football, then we would have maybe not missed out on those guys. Imagine if we would have signed those two.
And my only addition, and I feel like maybe we've now shifted to the Brad Friedel conversation, right?
Yeah.
As far as whether he's the DOF or not, I actually appreciate that there's a bit of obscurity, that there's not necessarily a especially clear hierarchy in that sense. Because I think it actually, like, what we heard, for example, was that Samet Aybaba was given, like, a couple regions, right? Like Scandinavia. Yeah, but in terms of scouting, he'd been given, like, Scandinavia, and I don't want to, like, make up the rest, but that was the one I recall. But so I appreciate that there's some level of obscurity there, that you've kind of delegated a few guys to do some of the jobs that the title itself requires, the DOF title. But then you also, like in Brad Friedel, you have a guy with very clear connections to, and we've talked about this already a little, but very clear connections to a few leagues around the world. Obviously England, but the US and MLS, which for anyone who's like, we often have players. So, like, the goal, right, is you get a guy who's, like, let's say 24 to 26, and then by the time he's, like, 28, you can sell him maybe or 27, you could sell him for a good bit of money. But for the guys who stick around longer, who maybe, don't blow up immediately, or, who are a little bit past that age mark, you can perhaps look to MLS to sell them, right? So it's probably really helpful to have, sure. Again, like a Abubakar or a Cenk, maybe now it's too late in that regard, but, to have a place like the MLS where you can kind of consistently send those types too. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like, I like what they're doing. And as you said, Kaan, it really feels like maybe they have a plan that goes beyond like just the basic, kind of like throw shit at the wall.
Yeah, a lot of people were saying, like, I mean, because we still hadn't signed a coach and all that, but I mean, we were saying, like, look, guys, give them until the 15th of June, right? Like, give them at least until halfway June. And I mean, we signed a coach with more than a week to spare. We got a director of football now. We got our first transfer, which we're going to talk about briefly. I mean, still has to actually sign the contract, but that the deal is almost done and dusted. Although let's not, we all know what happened with Lianco, of course. But yeah, like I think things are really, I think things are really positive. Like the puzzle is starting to come together, if that makes sense, right? Like we're starting to see their vision, and they've been talking about this for 6 months, and I think as fans, we're always expecting, oh, you know what, they promised this, and that, and we want to see it all, bam, happen straight away. But we need to understand it's a process. It takes time. They're also going to need to generate money. That's something we're going to talk about in a little bit as well, because there's some big rumors about outgoing stuff. And yeah, it's just like we need to be patient. They have time. Look, as long as they don't leave it until the last week of August or whatever the deadline is. But right now it looks like they're actually making moves pretty quickly. I heard some people say already, oh, well, you know, they'll probably won't sign most of the players until after the Euros. I don't think so. I expect them to finalize
I don't either.
At least the two big central defender transfers. And then look, I mean, we're going to talk about these transfer rumors in a bit, but a bunch of those guys aren't even active at the Euros, so there's no reason why the Euros should, stand in the way of those moves coming to fruition. Kartal, you have any thoughts on Brad Friedel?
Yeah, I mean, I spoke about him last week, but for me, the most important thing is the fact that he has his own analytics company. Mm-hmm. So we spoke about Moneyball and Billy Bean last week and how that revolutionised recruitment in baseball, which has also fell into football as well with clubs like Brentford, FC Midtjylland and stuff like that. A lot of big clubs, a lot of notorious clubs using that system, that Moneyball approach, looking at the analytics to recruit their squads and build their squads. So I think that's extremely valuable. I don't know if anyone saw, if anyone follows me on Twitter or X. There was a tweet by some.
I follow you guys.
Yeah, I follow you.
But basically, some foreigner or the Turkish league is so random. Just found out that Brad Friedel is randomly the director of football at Beşiktaş, as if it's this like crazy thing. But I wrote a reply back to that. I said, look, the guy's got a huge level of playing experience, a huge amount of playing experience at the top level. He's got good connections. He owns his own analytics company. Mm-hmm. I said, bar not having experience in that director of football role directly, if you look at it all together, except from that, you could argue he's an ideal candidate for that type of job because of his wealth of experience at the top level of the game.
Sure.
Like the fact that you don't play in the Premier League for as long as he did and not know football, and coupled with that he's got an analytics company, which is the analytics side of things is more and more important as time goes on in the game. So I think he's an ideal candidate, bar that lack of experience in that role. Yeah. Well, you can't really put a finger on it and say whether or not he's any good or not, but other than that, I think he's a great candidate.
If you are, look, like that's one of those things, like this is, you have to understand, like it's the same thing with Nuri Şahin, right? Like Nuri Şahin got the, spoiler alert.
Dortmund job.
He got the Dortmund job, actually. Let's go there. There, I've got a picture up for this. Especially for Nuri. Here you go. There, he got the Dortmund job. And that's one of those things. Look, he gets the Dortmund job now. If he does a really good job then, and in 2-3 years, everyone's going to be like now with Edin Terzic, oh, come to Beşiktaş. Everyone's going to be drooling over him. But you'll not have...
Yeah, too late, sucker.
Yeah, exactly. You won't have a chance. And it's the same thing with everything in football. But like a director of football, do you think a really good, proven director of football is going to come to Beşiktaş without getting paid ridiculous amounts of money? Of course not. Yeah. So you have to go for guys like Brad Friedel who have a good network, but who are just getting into the job. That's. We are not Fenerbahçe who can say, oh, you know what, let's we don't have Ali Koç saying, I'll pay a director of football 3 million a year or something, we don't have that luxury. Yeah. So you have to get in on the ground floor with these guys,
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
And
No, and I think Nuri Şahin's a perfect example because for a lot of our fans, oh, we can't take a risk like that, and okay, we can't, but Dortmund can.
Exactly.
Let's be serious,
No, Dortmund's what are you talking about? Sinan, Dortmund's a small club.
That's right. Yeah, apparently. You'd think we were just in the Champions League finals, right? Next year, I guess the year after next, maybe. I fully agree. And I think, the criticism. I don't know if you recall, Kartal, but I jumped to your defense. And in that Twitter scenario you were talking about, and
you did, yeah.
And they were criticizing his technical knowledge or whatever.
How
how
does
he put
that
his
matter?
team out when he was coaching. Yeah, and it's dude, he's not the freaking coach, man. We're here for our connection. But he's here to sell players, man. We don't care how we put his team in MLS.
Without wanting to offend you, Sinan, you are arguing with a bunch of Americans there. I guess it's too hard.
To
comprehend.
I fully get it.
There's
a reason I don't support an MLS side.
It's a completely different animal. Being a director of football has people who let's say you're watching. Let's say you are a very astute, smart person. You know a lot about football. That doesn't mean that you're a tactical wizard. That doesn't mean you're the best motivator. That doesn't mean you're all this, and that. So maybe coaching isn't for you.
Exactly.
But maybe you're a really good talker. You're a really good negotiator. You have a good eye for talent. Having an eye for talent doesn't mean you know how to get it out of them. That's the coach's job. But there's a lot of different qualities you need as a director of football compared to being a coach.
It's completely different things. A director of football is buying players and selling them, but buying players to suit a system. It's a manager's job to implement that system. They're two completely different things. Like, you can't really compare them. So it's not really interchangeable that if you're good at one of those things, you're going to be good at the other one. Not at all. So it was a daft point made by that person on Twitter, to be honest.
But it does look like Brad Friedel is going to be, for all intents and purposes, is going to be the director of football. He just isn't going to have the final decision, which I think in a lot of European clubs is the case. With director of football, they have the final decision. Or like, for example, at Ajax, they don't necessarily have the final decision. Like, their decisions still need to be approved. But that's essentially, I think, what Brad Friedel is going to do. He's going to advise certain things. He's going to advise certain players. And then the decision can be made, you know, with the board, with the coach, and all that. Whereas, like, for example, I think in Sevilla, Monchi had you know, free reign, you know. Anyway, let's move on to the next topic, guys, because I don't want to talk too long. We have the big game, of course, on right now. But Gabriel Paulista actually arrived in Istanbul already on Wednesday, and it looks like he is going to be our first signing. So Gabriel Paulista, 33-year-old central defender from Atletico de Madrid. To be fair, only played 5 games for Atletico de Madrid in the second half of the season. Before that, he was playing for Valencia for a bunch of years. 34 in November, not the youngest. We were close to signing him already in January. Hassanerat also said as much in the press conference today during the signing ceremony, that we had already basically agreed with him, but then last minute he went to Atletico de Madrid. But they went in for him again. They didn't say no hard feelings, you know. They just went in for him again as well because Giovanni van Bronckhorst wanted him a lot. Kartal, let me start with you. What are your thoughts on the acquisition of Gabriel Paulista?
I mean, obviously a great career, phenomenal CV. So I do look at the transfer pretty positively, to be honest. From what I've read, he seems to be more the warrior type centre back.
Yeah.
So we definitely need another kind of leader to like kind of cover up for him and basically help him build up, like who's good with his feet. So we definitely need another centre back that's going to clean up his mess and is good with his feet. But he seems to be a very good warrior centre back. Great career, played for Arsenal, played for Valencia, played for Atletico Madrid. Great CV. Only maybe criticism you could have is that if we sign him and another over 30 centre back, let's say that's Hummels, it might be a bit too old. Maybe it would have been better if we had like a younger warrior centre back pairing with Hummels to learn from him. That probably would have been better. But to be honest, if we can have a centre back pairing Mats Hummels and Gabriel Paulista for next season, I don't think too many people can complain, because last year we had Curly and Najib, so it's only up from there.
Yeah, and it's also like Grey Wolf said in the chat, you know, remember the team with Zago and Ronaldo. They were good defensive players that started the defense, the offense from the back as well. And I think that's something that is very important to Giovanni van Bronckhorst's game plan. And obviously, you know...
Yeah, the horseshoe, right?
Exactly. And like Kartal alluded to already, like, look at his career. You know, you can see it on the screen right now. I mean, some really good clubs there. And, you know, especially, of course, he played for Villarreal. He played for Arsenal for a bunch of years. Played for Valencia for a very long time. And then, of course, finally for Atletico de Madrid. Like, those are not clubs that have defenders that can't play out from the back, and especially not if he's going to make the amount of appearances he's made. I actually did a video on him, on the transfer update 2 days ago, I think, or yesterday, I don't remember exactly, and I had this graphic up there as well. And one of the, of course, important things that Beşiktaş fans are always worried about is injury history. And when we look at Gabriel Paulista's...
that's the definite silver lining, right?
I mean, the injury history, obviously he's had injuries. It's not too bad. He's had 2 knee injuries that kept him out for like 4 months, 5 months. But other than that, like, he hasn't had he had knee injuries, but no cruciate ligament tears, no meniscus issues, nothing like that. So nothing that will do lasting damage and will cause future injuries. So
and it's nearly been 3 years since his last knee injury too, so he's clearly recovered and played quite a bit since then too. So that's
so
good news.
So yeah, definitely good news. Gabriel Paulista, the signing is still yet to be made official. but I think that will happen in the very near future. And then, of course, we're also linked to a bunch of other players. We're going to talk about that in a second. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about outgoing news, because there is some big stuff brewing, apparently. Gedson Fernandes looks like he's on the way to Zenit St Petersburg, Sinan. What are your thoughts on this?
Kartal, I hope you have a really top-notch set of clippers. You know.
Oh.
Yeah, because Kartal's twin made a bet in our group chat that because he was so sort of dead set on the notion that Gedson wasn't very good.
Also a big Gedson hater, let's be honest. You know.
Yeah, I was trying to be artful about my description, but basically saying that there's no way he'd get even 15 million. So if we got more than 15 million euro for Gedson,
12 is what he said.
12.
Yeah. He said,
wow.
No way anyone's offering 12 million for Gedson.
Oh no.
I'll shave my eyebrows if it happens. It's not gonna happen. I'll do it, but it won't happen. That's what he said. So, Kartal, are you gonna do the honors when it happens? Are you gonna live on the show trim his eyebrows?
Nah, I think that'd be too far. I think I'll leave him to do it himself, because I said to him the other day, I said, look, next time you just need to keep your mouth shut in this kind of scenario. You don't talk big like that. I mean, Gedson Fernandes, as much as I think that he's not very suited for us in most of the games, I think Gedson's a great player for derbies. He's a phenomenal player to have for derbies, but I think when you're playing like Istanbul Sport or something like a lower team, he's not going to be that guy that opens the lock for you. And I think that we'd be. I think we're better suited having a centre mid that's better rounded, more well rounded. He does have very clear deficiencies in his game. Like his decision making's very bad. He's not a very good passer. Great dribbler, great ball winner. Occasionally he can have phenomenal shots, but I just don't think he's that all-around package that I'd like to see in our starting 11. As Zuzan said quite frequently over the season, he'd prefer someone like Fred, which I think they all agreed that if we could get a guy like that, it would be better.
Yeah, but I literally had I had someone say to me recently on the show, Nicky van der Gijp said it's the best player I ever saw play live. Like Fred, it's not because Fred is really good that Gedson isn't a great player as well, man. Like his ball recuperation is ridiculous. Like that is like so good. And I think put Gedson in a good team, and everyone loves him. That's the problem. The problem is Gedson's played in really poor Beşiktaş teams. We haven't seen him with enough quality around him, and that's why.
No, it's funny. I feel like if he had the same squad as, for example, Atiba, I mean, would he? I mean, obviously, a huge part of Atiba's sort of legendary status was his longevity, right, and the fact that he was so consistent and so good for as long as he was, but like put Gedson on most of the sides, and like he can do. I mean, some things Atiba would obviously do better, but Gedson does other things better than him. So I think, I think he got sort of shortchanged by the team that we had. I think people were sort of expecting him to carry us, right? You know what I mean? Like in a way that's not what you need from that. Not even from that position. You can't really even expect that.
Yeah.
And then furthermore, and I think this might even be more relevant to why he's, I wouldn't say expendable, but why we're probably selling him. Once we got Al Musrati, right, there are a lot less mistakes on that back line for Gedson to clean up, which doesn't make him redundant, right? Like Gedson showed, I think he had one of those great performances where he even started playing on the wings and stuff. He's a very versatile and dynamic player.
Yeah, I mean,
but people would say he's better suited out wide than he is in the middle.
You might be able to. I mean, that was one of his better performances. I don't think
that's not a good take.
Yeah.
Though. Like, yes, drifting out
I
wide,
agree.
going forward, he's very good, but that doesn't mean he's not in the middle. He's still winning those balls. He's still vacuuming. It's not like he's gonna play like he played against Trabzonspor every game. Against Trabzonspor, he was essentially a second striker and pressing like mad.
And it adds. It's something that adds to his value. It adds to his dynamism, as I was saying. But like, I don't know if it's his like, featured role or anything like that.
Like he's definitely a good player. I'm not saying he's a bad player at all. He's a good player. He's one of the best ball winners and one of the best ball carriers you could hope for. But
literally the best ball winner in the league.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, but I just think that we in that position, that number 8 role, we need someone that's more all around because his decision making and his passing, just that we know it's not very good. Like you guys would accept that as well. That it's not very good. That I think I've said before in the podcast, I've been on record saying I'd prefer someone like not the tall guy Arslan, but someone in that profile. He's not as good as a ball winner as Gedson, but he can win balls. He's combative. He's a good dribbler as well. Not as good as a good dribbler.
Maybe a little more consistent than tall guy, right? But
I'm talking about I'm not talking about him personally. I'm talking about that.
Like,
his skill set.
The tall guy was
someone who can give the splitting pass and who can set up, give the pre-assist and.
Well, and again,
I think we need that kind of guy. And I also think Gio wants that kind of player as well. Hence why we've sanctioned this sale, because of course we'll get it's a great fee we're getting. Was it arguably reportedly 21 million, but we need to remember we only get half of that. So really, you can't say we're getting an awful lot of money for him. So I think part of the reason why the sale has been sanctioned is I think Gio wants the kind of player that I'm talking about, someone that can, someone that's a better passer of the ball, more of an all-rounder in that midfield. So I think that's part of the reason.
More than just that. More than even like what Gio wants. I think again, right? Like you just have to look at what we need when you have a guy like Al Musrati back there. And I think he is so solid in the back and so capable of kind of like holding down that back. And he obviously has the ability to help the offense with his distribution, but he's not going to go forward. Obviously he scored a huge goal for us, but that's like an exception, right? Late in the game and all that. Yeah. For the most part, he's manning that back line so solidly that you don't need a Gedson to the same extent that we did when we had, for example, like Amir Hadzimetovic on, in that 6 role. And so I think, keeping in mind that Al Musrati is the most valuable transfer we've ever made as far as incoming players, I think it makes a ton of sense that, given what he does and given the fact that he's very likely, a guaranteed lock in that role going into next season and going forwards, you really want someone who offers more dynamism going forward in that 8 role next to him, right? Like and again, I feel like redundant is being a little disrespectful to Gedson because he, like I said, right, he does have that dynamism, but I can see how, like I was even trying to experiment, in the group chat earlier, like what if we kind of convert Mucci into an 8 role, and because he has that willingness to come back and be very active all over the pitch. Obviously, there's still questions.
Sorry, finish your point, Sinan.
No. You go. I've cut you guys off so many times. It's only fair, but I think I've made you get where I'm going with that. Yeah. I agree with you. Basically.
Yeah, you were talking about basically how Mucci might be transformed into an 8, but Gio kept talking about being tactically flexible. So, and he has played a 4-2-3-1 in the past. So I really hope that he plays a 4-2-3-1 and Mucci is behind the striker, because although Mucci, I think, did show promise on the 8, he showed more promise at the 8 than he did on the wing, I think. This guy is the most dangerous when he's playing close to goal. So I think we need to keep him as close to goal as possible without him being an actual striker. So I really hope that we play a 4-2-3-1 and Mucci is kind of in a free role behind the striker.
I think if you get a very good left wing back, you can easily put Mucci on the left if he can squeeze in and essentially play as a second striker. I think that would probably be Mucci's best role. But then you need a really good dynamic wing back. like you can't have Masuaku. Masuaku's too slow. You need to have somebody with crazy energy and the ability to go up and down those wings and swing in balls, have good deliveries. Yeah, I think then you can put Mucci there, no problem. You don't need to play him as a 10. But and I don't agree that Mucci was bad on the wing necessarily. I think it's just that we don't have the team to play Mucci on the wing. I think what we needed this season was somebody who can, like Gazal, who can dribble a guy, put in the perfect cross, and that's just not Mucci. Mucci's gonna squeeze. Mucci's more like a Ryan Babel, you know, like he's gonna have to squeeze in. He's gonna try and fire shots at goal, and he's not this like Ryan Babel was quicker. You know, Mucci isn't super fast, not like slow or anything, but like Ryan Babel was a.
I think I mentioned this in the group chat yesterday, Kaan. I don't know if you'll agree with this, but see with Mucci, when he's on the wings, he doesn't quite have that pace to get by that fullback. But see when you put him in the middle, he's faster than most of the midfielders and the centre backs. So like all of a sudden when he's in that middle, he can make those piercing runs past the midfield, sometimes past the defence, get to go as well. We've seen him do that kind of thing. Whereas in the wing, you take that away from his game, I think, when you put him in the wing, because I think he does struggle for pace against the fullbacks. But against midfielders and the centre backs, he has them beat quite often, and we do see him make piercing runs. So
I don't remember I don't remember seeing him get out-muscled, out-paced by a fullback necessarily. I just think he kind of fades.
Does he beat them? But he doesn't beat them like he does in the middle. But because if you watch, I think the Galatasaray game's a great example. Mucci goes on a few great runs there where he just
I know what you mean.
Past several players.
Yeah.
But on the wing, we've not seen him. He's played quite a few games on the wing, and we've not seen him do that on the wing.
I feel like
that's the point I'm kind of making there.
I feel like it's kind of a situation like Semi with the national team, and it's like he's not getting the ball enough there, or at all. I feel like Mucci, whenever he plays on the left, doesn't get the ball enough. Like, you know how Gezal and Quaresma, they constantly get the ball because the team wants to play through them. But I don't really think that Mucci did. But let's finish the Gedson conversation. So the rumors are 20 plus million for Gedson. And then there's also the next guy, Bahtiyar Zaynutdinov, also on the books for Zenit. They really want both of them. Bahtiyar, not sure.
Have you heard, though, Kaan, the latest rumors on?
I was just gonna get to that.
Kazaki friend.
So Bahtiyar not keen on the return to Russia, but I wonder how.
And specifically, though, did you hear? No. So I mean, it was a dick bomb, so you never know about its veracity. But the very latest, was that supposedly he's quite happy in Istanbul, specifically with Beşiktaş, and he really wants to try to make it work.
Yeah, I think
here.
I think that's logical as well. Like he didn't just leave Russia for like he wanted to make the step to Europe, and obviously now he's in a position where we're trying to basically force him. We're trying to get him away again or leave again. But like, how important could it be potentially to get a second player involved in this deal? You know.
I mean,
to cut.
I think the only thing that's really super crucial for is my brother's eyebrows, to be honest. Because if it was a package deal, you could argue maybe it was 12 each. But because as much as I think for the right price, the price has been spoken of 4 or 5 million. I think that'd be a great price for Bahtiyar, and we can sell him. Great, but he's not one of those players that we really need to get out because he does still count as being Turkish. And for the Jason's contract because of the blue card rule.
Great versatility player, great utility player. But if we're going to sell Gedson because of the 15%, you could do a package deal and say, look, 15 million for Gedson, 10 million for Zaynut, and then that way you make a little bit more money. And it's not super shady because, I mean, like, look, if you do 5 million for Gedson, 20 million for Bahtiyar, that's shady. But if you do 15-10 or something like that, or whatever, like, then it's like, that's. I mean, look, we don't owe Benfica anything. They screwed us on Talisca. they were supposed to give us our loan fee of 5 million euros over 2 years back if they sold Talisca for 25 plus. So what did those guys do? Just loaned them out with an obligation to buy.
Yeah, exactly. To lengthen the deal.
So
right?
they didn't have to pay us. I mean, we've gotten screwed like that before. Remember, Fiorentina were supposed to give us 50% of the fee they got for Mario Gomez, and we got nada, nothing. So it's like, it's a little double, because like Benfica, I don't think is a club you wanna piss off, because you want to be able to do business with them again in the future. But 50% on 20 million, man, that's painful. That's really fucking painful.
That hurts. That hurts.
Shout out to Ahmed Nourchevi for putting that clause on the deal.
I mean, look, I think it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, I think that
we also got him for way less than he was worth.
Yeah,
exactly. And we got him for so much less than he was worth at the time.
He was
it is what it is.
A 10 to 15 million player when we got him, and we got him for 6. Yeah. And that's the only way we could have gotten that done. And it's painful now. I think it's a lot worse when you have Emrecan Uzunhan, who we signed for 2 million euros and then only got 50% of his rights. I think that is a lot more shady. Like Gedson for 6 for 50% of his rights. It's painful now, but back then it's a great transfer, and 6 million was a steal, obviously, But now it's come back to haunt us. By the way, White Mania is asking how you're feeling about Scotland getting slapped.
I think that's Ike. I'm okay, bro. As I said, I'm not the biggest Scotland fan. Just like I'm not that bothered with the Turkish national team either. I'm club over country. Obviously, I want to see them do well. I want to see them win, but I'm not going to lose any sleep over them losing, to be honest. No.
Yeah.
One thing we've learned about Ilke since the NBA playoffs have started is that he loves to stir shit and troll.
Oh, yeah.
So don't take it too personal, Kartal. That's just our boy Ilke.
Yeah.
All right, boys. Anything you want to say about the Gedson and Bahtiyar deal? Because it does look like the Gedson one, especially, is about to happen. Gedson supposedly already agreed personal terms for a 4-year contract worth 3 million a year, and then the fee we don't know quite yet. But also, the president of Zenit came out and said that some of the reports were not true to reality or something, but it does look like Gedson at least is on his way, and Bahtiyar will have to wait and see. Any last thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I'd just like to thank Gedson Fernandes for his service over the last 2 years. I think that first season after Cheryl Gudesh came in, he was very good. Last year it was a bit up and down. There was moments where I was frustrated with him as well, but he did still have some very good moments. I mean, the final comes to mind. He played an amazing game in the final. The Kiev games, he was very good in them. He did have his struggles this year, just like the rest of the team did. Do I think it's the right move for that money? Yeah, because I think although he's a very valuable player and he's exceptional ball carrying and ball winning, I think we do need a more of an all-round player in that position going forward. But I'd like to thank him for his 2 years of service. He's been a very enjoyable player to watch for the most part, and I wish him the best of luck with his career from here on out.
Hey, you, Sinan.
Very much the same thoughts. I wish I'd gotten a Gedson shirt, in his time while he was with us. I do think my daughter got one, which I'm glad that he'll be in the family. But yeah, also, if the Zaynutdinov thing does fall through, I'll definitely see the positives of that. I'm pretty, Kaan, you and I both, we're pro Zaynut, so I think we'll make use of him. I'm not too bothered by the loss of that. Obviously, the benefit would have been, fudging the numbers and getting more money back from Gedson, but whatever. It is what it is. And like very well said, Kartal, classy. I think we got to thank Gedson for what he's contributed in a tough time for the club too. And he was one guy that you never doubted his passion, his drive, right? In a time when a lot of other guys where you did.
you missed it when he wasn't playing. Like if he was injured or suspended, it was very noticeable. I think people are going to. I think people are going to realize it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be a situation of you don't know what you've got until it's gone with Gedson. I think a lot of people are going to come to the realization of how good he was once he's gone. I think
to be honest, we hope not though, because if we're thinking like that, that means we're having another bad season.
Yeah. I mean, let's hope not. But I mean, I think.
And I was going to say, I do think that Al-Musrati will cover for some of those gaps that we're going to be lacking. You know, hopefully, obviously, but certainly there will be times.
Al-Musrati is not the most like. He's not Gedson. Like he doesn't cover that much ground.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very different type of defensive.
He's not going to run up and down the park and chase guys down, but Al-Musrati's defensive prowess comes more from his positional awareness. Just like
and he's more stationary, right? He's more stationary in the back,
and
so he prevents. So he provides less of a need.
He's not going to run about like crazy, but he's going to use his positional awareness to win balls, recuperate balls. Yeah. But he's a much better distributor than Gedson. And then I think one of the big issues has been the last 2 years is the imbalance of the team. Yeah. And Gedson had to do so much to compensate for that imbalance. And I think if we can put together a good team that is balanced with a lot of players that, like, you know, really in a three-man midfield, all three of those guys should be winning the ball. It should be pressing. It should be doing this. It should be doing that. It should but with us it was always Gedson getting all those balls. You know. Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Anyway, boys. One last thing I want to talk about before we leave the ether, and that is a bunch of transfer rumors that we've got right now. Mm-hmm. Let's get our little Beşiktaş transfer talk logo up. Where is it? Here it is.
There we go.
And then we got a bunch of rumors. Bam, there you go, guys. Take your pick. Who would you like to start with? There's a bunch of people being linked. Of course, like we said, a lot of people throwing shit at the wall, see what sticks. I mean, we did pick the most credible rumors out there right now. Kartal, you want to pick someone to start off with?
There's one thing that I want to point out though, is that I think all these players, it's either one or the other for all of them. Right? So I think,
except for two of them, they're all pretty old.
Yeah. So for me, I think you either go for Royce or Berghuis. You either go for Carlos Soler. Sorry, I do apologise. My Dutch isn't too good. And then you've also got, we've also got Carlos Soler from PSG and Groenbeck from Bodo Glimt. Yeah. So I think. I think it's going to be either one of those two for the number 8 position, and then you've got Hummels or Savic for centre back. I think for me, Royce and was it? Can you say Berghuis? All right.
Berghuis.
Berghuis.
Berghuis means mountain house.
So I'd pick.
I would have guessed that.
Or hill house.
I'd pick Marco Reus out of those two. Although I think they're both good players, but I think you don't want both wings being older, and especially if Bucci is going to stay around. You don't see Reus going in the middle, so he's probably going to be out on the left wing. So I don't think you sign both, because that'd make both of your wings over 30. So I think you take one of the two. I think both of them could do a similar job where they could both be great creators for us, but also a goal threat as well. So I think they both offer similar things, but Royce is just a different level. The guy's been a top player in the world for years, played almost all his career at Borussia Dortmund, been their marquee player for almost all that time. So I think
also nearly 3 years older though, like 2.5 years older.
Yeah, but I think out of the two, Royce is the exception. Like, they're both great players, but I think Royce is the exceptional talent. So I pick Royce out of those two. For the centre backs, I think we all want to see Mats Hummels come to Beşiktaş over Savic, because I think Hummels is just that pure leader. Like, he's that leader centre back that we need. Phenomenal ball playing set.
I mean, is he a leader? Is he a leader? He comes across as a bit of a shit stirrer. Did you hear what happened at Dortmund? Apparently not the first time, but so he. Is that right? Okay. He refused to stay at Dortmund if Edin Terzic stayed on. So essentially, what happened is Edin Terzic resigned, obviously, and Dortmund said, "Look, we're parting ways with Hummels regardless, because that's just not something we want." Now look, I think it's kind of understandable if you look at Dortmund. Like, I think Dortmund's season, is it saved by the Champions League final? Yeah, probably, but you cannot ignore the fact that did they finish 5th or something?
Yeah.
They had a really poor season in the Bundesliga, coming off of almost winning the Bundesliga last season. It choked on the last day against Mainz at home, lost 1-2. Lost the title on the last match day. So, I understand that there may be some people at the club who wanted a new coach. It's pretty big dick move to say, I'm not staying if he's staying.
Yeah, and I think they've identified that and they've decided not to continue with him because of, for me that is toxic behaviour, but he definitely is the calibre of centre-back we're looking for, and that kind of type. A great ball-playing centre-back is going to, if Paulista is going out to press the ball, Hummels will sit back and clear up the mess if need be. And he's also a phenomenal distributor, so I think he's exactly what we're looking for.
Like, guy plays freaking Trivelas from centre-back.
Yeah, in the Champions League final.
Ridiculous. Obviously, I think, if we got to pick, I think everyone would pick Mats Hummels. But Stefan Savic is no slouch either, Also younger, 33 years old. Still old, of course. But he's no slouch either. But high wage demands. His agent was in Istanbul last week. The wage demands were 4 million a year. Beşiktaş did not agree with that. Agent went back without a deal. But now, supposedly, they've lowered their asking price in terms of wages. So we are still in talks with Stefan Savic. Supposedly, Mats Hummels' wage demands are 5 million a year. That's pretty steep, of course. And he also has offers from mainly Serie A, AC Milan, and one other club were interested. So there's a lot of competition for Hummels. And of course, if AC Milan is going to get involved, it's going to be quite difficult, I think. But we do have the advantage that Hummels seemed to be really charmed by Beşiktaş when he played against us in the past. I think he played against us twice. For Bayern
there's twice in the Champions League. We played against them in the 17-18 last 16, and he did say that I was at that game, and that was the best atmosphere I've experienced in my life, because unfortunately I never went to the Old Arena. But I was at that game, and that was the best atmosphere I experienced in my life. I was emotional leaving the stadium, and it was that good. It was one of those moments where you lost the game 3-1. Albeit we probably should have at least got a draw. I think a draw would have been a fair result, but just the atmosphere was phenomenal. It was a celebration, I feel, of us getting to that last 16 and us winning that group undefeated, despite the round of 16 tie not going the way we'd hoped. But after that game, you had Thomas Muller taking a hat off to us and like that in the stands. Mats Hummels went on record saying it was the best atmosphere he's experienced in his career. It was a special night. It was one that just made me very proud to be a Beşiktaş fan. So I think there is a connection there from that game, and hopefully that's enough to persuade him to come.
Yeah, and he doesn't want to go to the MLS. He doesn't want to go to Saudi Arabia. He really wants to stay in Europe. So that does indicate that the sportive aspect is very important for him. So perhaps that fan factor can come into play into swaying him our way. Of course, playing in San Siro or the new stadium they're building in Milan, that's amazing as well, of course. So he has some choices for him, of course. But I think everyone prefers. Go ahead. Sorry.
It's likely. I think if it's between a Milan and a Beşiktaş, it's like the difference between theoretically maybe having to fight for a role with Milan, because you imagine they have a lot of talent in that position versus coming into a position at Beşiktaş where he's the clear de facto starter / leader / captain / you know what I mean? It's like, what, you know, maybe he's obviously not at the point of his career where he's just trying to cash in.
Yeah, that's a great point, Sinan.
Right?
That's a phenomenal point, Sinan.
I don't think Hummels would go to Milan and sit on the bench. He would play.
Yeah. So what?
Yeah, but he'd have, you know what I mean? Like, he'd have more competition for his role, no doubt.
Yeah. What I was going
confidence.
What I was saying about Sinan's point being brilliant is, I mean, look back at 2017. Obviously, that was different circumstances. We were in the Champions League, had back-to-back titles. We won the league 2 years in a row under Şenol Güneş. We had a very good European campaign the year before, but for Pepe, it was PSG or Beşiktaş, and because he was guaranteed to start at Beşiktaş, he picked us. So if, obviously, Carlos said he's confident that he'll start at Milan, but if there's any doubt of him not being a starter at Milan, he could think the same as Pepe. But as I said, that was a bit of a different circumstance. We were definitely a club on up, and we had a lot of respect in Europe at that time, whereas now we're on a bit of a downwards trajectory. But there could be a similar line of thinking there from Mats Hummels in order to bring him to Beşiktaş. Just seeing that Germany's maybe 5-0.
But I don't think you can compare PSG to like PSG's squad
their
and
depth
ability
or
to
whatever.
bring in players, and that's not comparable.
Germany's winning. So speaking of Hummels and Royce, Germany's winning 5-0 and Scotland's down to 10. But just quickly though, Kaan, there's another aspect to this too. Perhaps there's a need at the position now for Milan, and they're in a kind of position where they'll pay for him, knowing he'll give them a solid season. But on the other hand, with Beşiktaş, he could pretty much, like, this could be a legitimate last significant stop in his career too, right? Because he knows with us, he'd have a guaranteed role for basically as long as he'd want it, right? Like, we'd let him, sail out, into the seas or whatever.
You say that, but if you have that type of a contract, like we didn't, it's not like, I don't think that's true at all. We couldn't keep Pepe because we couldn't pay his wages, remember? And he was on 4.5. And if Hummels wants 5, let's say he sells for 4.5.
I would never. Yeah, I don't know if I want to pay anyone that.
This is my rebuttal to that, Kaan. Hussein Yücel was prepared to pay 12 million a year to Mourinho. Oh, sorry, he said it's 12 million. I think it's what Fenerbahce is paying, but I think he said it was going to be less than 10. So if he was prepared to pay 8-9 million euros a year for Mourinho, why could they not pay 5 million for Hummels to maybe make up for that not going through? That could be an opportunity for him to save face with the fans. If
he does pay it, that's fine. But I'm saying, like I said, like, he's not gonna. Let's say he wants to play for 4 more years. Do you think Hüseyin Yücel is going to pay him 5 million a year for 4 years? Like, who says Hüseyin Yücel is still even going to be at the club in 4 years?
With that in mind, though, Kaan, I don't given that he's already ruled out Saudi Arabia and MLS and stuff. I don't know that we can sort of guarantee that he's gonna maybe he factors in
going there 2
taking
years later.
slightly less money, right? Taking slightly less money for that sort of security.
But 5 million is not. That is not a super high wage in Europe. That is not. That's a lot of money for us, but like in the top 5 leagues for the top teams, 5 million is nothing.
Yeah, I mean,
but he's also, given his age, I think he knows that he's right. Like, he's in a slightly reduced situation as far as
he's not coming to play for 2 million euros. Don't even think it.
No. But I was thinking maybe he'd take like 3 million over 3 years or something.
We're playing the Beşiktaş accountants
contract
again.
that goes up.
I don't see, to be honest, him getting an offer for 3 or 4 years from anyone. So I think.
No, he won't. He will get it like a 2-year deal. Probably.
Yeah. To actually, like, kind of say, Sinan maybe had a good point. Is that maybe could be viable? Maybe not 3, but let's say, like, meet in the middle between 3 and 5. Could give him 4, but give him an extra year. Like that could work potentially to bring him. If it's a 2-year deal, I think Hüseyin Yücel will be here for the next 2 years. So I think he could fund it for the next 2 years if he was going to be able to fund Mourinho for 2 years. Why not pay 5 for for 2 years for Hummels to save grace with the fans, because we know that the fans aren't happy with him just now after the basically how amateur he was talking about Mourinho and there wasn't a done deal.
But then you use that on Hummels. Do you think he's gonna? Then he has to do it again on Royce or what? Because Royce's wage demands are also very high. You know, he's expecting to make around 7 million a year. It's a lot of money.
See the thing is, to be honest, I think age isn't a huge issue for a centre back, but would Royce for 7 million be worth it at age 36? I would question marks about that.
I think that's tough.
Yeah.
I think Royce is.
I would take Hummels over Royce.
Yeah, I think a centre back. We spoke about this last week. The age isn't a factor, whereas on the wing it is a factor, because
I mean it's always a factor. It's always.
I mean it's a factor, but
everyone ages differently. But
it's not as important.
Impactful.
It's not as important.
Yeah. There's a lot more great central defenders who played until they were 40, 41. You know, Maldini is a prime example. Pippen now as well. I mean, there's a lot of defenders who play upwards to 37, 38. You know, approaching 40. You know, Hummels is 35. It's very plausible he still has 2-3 years at the top in him.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Whereas a winger, I mean, obviously you have exceptions like a Ryan Giggs, but like a winger playing until his late 30s is less prevalent.
Yeah, because they often rely on their pace more.
Robben was the example.
Robben is an example, but obviously guys like Berghuis and Royce aren't the types of wingers that rely heavily on their pace. So,
although Royce was very fast when he was younger.
Yeah,
obviously he adapted this game.
How old is Berghuis?
Berghuis is 32.
33.
No, he's not. He's 32. He turns 33 in December, so in about 6 months. So he's 32 years old.
I see.
So it's like slightly better prognosis there, you could say. I mean, look, here's the point that I was going to make earlier regarding like Royce and Berghuis and whoever, like however many older players you want to bring, like if we do go that route, then I think you really have to get a guy like Grönbeck or over Soler, right? Yeah, you really want to start getting younger guys in who can learn kind of work ethic and ethos and stuff like that from those vets. To balance that out.
You want to have a Gedson in 2-3 years that you can sell for 20 million.
Exactly.
Know?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So
I mean, it would. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that if you throw as much money as we're talking about at a bunch of these older folks, you got to then make a very concerted effort to bring in guys to develop, not just for the sake of like financial things like making money, but even just to benefit from having such a good solid core of older guys, right? Guys who are going to be receptive, who are going to see them, how they train, how they play, their professionalism, and where you're going to benefit from, having kind of like coaches on the pitch, right? So I think, it would actually kind of put pressure on the board to find good developmental players to supplement the squad with.
Yeah. And Grey Wolf mentioned in the comments as well that he prefers young players, but the thing is you need to have the balance. You need to find the balance. You need to have good experienced players who can put those younger players under the learning tree, and that's where Marco Reus, of course, is a great player, and Mats Hummels is a great player. But if you're gonna pair Mats Hummels with Gabriel Paulista, you've got two older defenders. That's not a problem. But that there's nobody under the learning tree. So then you could, for example, maybe put a Yasin Özcan, if you get him from put him at left back, then you have an 18-year-old who has a very experienced defensive duo next to him that he can learn from. Exactly. And Yasin Özcan also has the build to be a central defender in the future, so he could, play a couple of years as left back, and depending on how he does there, he could stay a left back, or he could transition to becoming a center back down the line, whatever. And that's the same. I agree with you on Grönbeck. It's like he's somebody you can buy, and that could be a player you can then in 2 years. He's 23 now. So in 2 years, when he's 25, 26, he can still make that next step to a top 5 league for a good fee. Whereas with good bit of money. Yeah. Whereas with Carlos Soler, you have a guy who's 27 years old, prime years, no problem there in terms of age, but he'd probably be coming for the long haul, to maybe play until he's 30, 31. And with a guy like Grumbeck, you're probably getting him to play for 2-3 years and then hopefully sell him and hopefully he develops and he goes to a top 5 league.
And the guy with Soler, like maybe with more time and a more prominent role in the squad, perhaps he has such a solid 1 or 2 years with us that we can make some money off of him. But you can't rely on that, right? You can't hope for that to the extent that with a guy like Grönbeck, because of his youth, you kind of that pretty much one good season in the next few years and you can cash in as soon as he provides it. So
the problem with him is his release clause apparently is 15 million. So he's not going to be cheap.
We're trying to get into 8 million according to Murat Özcan, but the caveat to all of it is Galatasaray's supposedly interested as well, and we all know that. I mean, maybe we can make a point where you play more with us, you're not guaranteed to play with Galatasaray, but I think just now Galatasaray is a more attractive destination.
Yeah, of course. You got Champions League football, back-to-back champions. Yeah. They offer more money in terms of wages. They're going to offer him more wages regardless. We might offer him 1.2 million a year. Galatasaray is going to throw the 1.9 or the 2 million at him,
Yeah.
So...
but then I guess you also slightly less than AC Milan, I guess. But I think he could probably be guaranteed more playing time with us, right?
Yeah,
to some extent. I mean, I don't know who does Galatasaray have there? They'd probably play him, right?
Yeah.
Who's their 8s right now?
So he plays maybe Kerem Demirbay or something. So he is better than who they have.
Yeah, I do think he'd play.
Yeah,
he probably would.
mean, and then Carlos Soler also a good option to have, of course, a great player. Didn't quite pan out for him at PSG, but had an amazing career in Spain before that.
He was for
Valencia.
It was what I like to call a double-double. That's the term I forgot. That was. Obviously, that's a basketball term, but he was a double-double midfielder at Valencia. He was a guy that could go and get 10 goals, 10 assists in a league season. 10
goals, 10 assists.
Yeah,
that's also the reputation.
That's
also the reputation Berghuis has had for many years in the Netherlands. By the way, a double-double.
Hey, Kartal, Scotland with the goal.
That's who scored.
They pull one back.
Andy Robertson with a free kick.
Oh, 4-1. Did the 5-0 get disallowed?
It's our own goal.
I didn't.
It's our own goal.
The 5th goal, Kaan. Germany's 5th goal. Not only did it get disallowed, but I feel like it got disallowed well after the run of play. Because it seemed like they'd restarted. It was well decided. And then I looked back and it was gone.
Rudiger own goal.
Yeah,
we scored ourselves.
Oh, Rudiger! Look at that. Oh, clumsy.
Anyway, let's close it down, guys. So this is the rumor. These are the players in the rumor mill right now. Marco Reus, we've heard that name for a long time now, but linked very closely to the MLS. That move still hasn't happened, so might put some truth to those rumors, according to 90 Doxan8 on Twitter, or 90 plus, whatever you want to call them. Hassan Arad actually had a personal meeting with Reus, and I mean, they were hinting at it the other day as if it was really close to being done, but they weren't revealing the name yet. And then they revealed the name today, or was it yesterday? I don't remember.
It was yesterday, I think.
Yeah, that was the day before yesterday. Then that they sent that teaser out. And 90 plus, who are they, right? But they've had a couple of good, they had the Giovanni van Bronckhorst news.
Just now, they seem to be the most reliable Beşiktaş source out there. They said that Gio would be the coach 5 days before it happened. Friedel, they said he'd be the director of football 5 days before it happened. I mean, there is some rumours going about there, maybe not so much rumours, more speculation that people are thinking that it might be someone from the board's account or someone with close ties to a board member's account, because everything they've said so far has been spot on.
They predicted the transfer too, right?
Paulista, I think so.
Yeah,
as well.
they were the first report Paulista has been done as well, or almost done, so they've been spot on so far. As I said, because of how spot on they've been, there's been speculation as to who's behind the account. Is it a board member? Is it a close relative or someone with close ties to a board member?
Yeah.
Because they've been spot on so far. So far they've been the most reliable source for Beşiktaş news. So it's believable that Royce is on our radar and they could be close to joining.
Yeah.
The same with Kartal Ogur as well. It was them that reported him as well. I forgot to say.
Sorry.
It was also them that reported Kartal Ogur as well. 90+.
Yeah. Very recently. That was their latest, right?
That was today. Yeah, that was today.
Yeah.
So, whether or not they're reliable, they've had a couple of really good scoops lately. They've been on the money, so yeah, they are the ones putting the Royce and the Kartal Ogur news out there. So if either of those come to fruition, I think we can say we've got a new go-to source.
Basically.
For now, I still take everything with a pinch of salt right now, because
for sure,
not a lot of reliable news going out there. Guys,
and we've just heard so much, right? We've heard so much stuff over the last few weeks.
We've heard so much. Oh, one more thing I want to mention about Berghuis, by the way, because that's been reported in the media, in the Turkish media, as if it's very close to being done as well. I did an episode the other day, just a video the other day on the transfers, and in there I showed a clip from a podcast from the Telegraaf kickoff, and Mike Verwey, who's basically a big Dutch journalist, very close ties to Ajax, have to add a caveat here. He was also saying Tadic isn't going anywhere last summer, and then Tadic obviously went somewhere. But he did inform with the club about Berghuis, and they said we haven't received any official offers from Beşiktaş or anything like that yet. But he did say then that it could go on to become more serious. That's what he said, and not what the Ajax said. But so I definitely think that there's a possibility for Berghuis to come to Beşiktaş, and I think that it's also a player a lot of the fans, of course, are very positive about. And he has a history, a good history, a positive history with Giovanni van Bronckhorst. Talking about those double-double numbers under Giovanni van Bronckhorst at Feyenoord, Berghuis scored a bunch of goals and gave a ridiculous amount of assists. So I think he'd be a very good addition to Beşiktaş right now as well.
And I think when you have a guy like that who we've been linked to for a couple transfer windows, and then you line it up with the fact that we have a coach who's actually already worked with him. It's not a huge stretch of the imagination, right? Like,
plus add to that as well, Giovanni van Bronckhorst, obviously somebody we were in talks with and very close to getting in January. Gabriel Paulista, also talking to in January, very, very close to getting in January. Yeah. And you would imagine that even back then,
linked, right?
I wouldn't be surprised if there was a connection there. That Van Bronckhorst, obviously Arad confirmed as much today during the press conference, but that Paulista is somebody that Van Bronckhorst really wanted. And I think maybe that was the case in January as well, when it was looking like that deal was going to get done, but obviously that broke down over he couldn't get his assistant. But maybe Paulista was also somebody that Van Bronckhorst had already said he wanted back then. And obviously, you had the Berghuis rumors back then as well. Although I do think the Berghuis rumors were probably more created by the fans in the summer when the Tadic transfer broke down. But still, there's definitely something there. Where there's smoke, there's fire, right?
Yeah, this time for sure. By the way, it's 5 now for Germany. And Emre Can, a Turk of sorts. Yeah.
All right. Anything to add about these guys? About these transfer rumors, guys?
I think that's good, man. I think we're rounded up.
All right. Well then, if nothing left to add, Sinan, you can take us out. But before you do so, I do want to say, guys, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, give us a thumbs up. Please give us a thumbs up, helps a lot. And enjoy the rest of the Euros. And see you in the coming weeks with more Beşiktaş news, hopefully. No, over to you.
And so I do have, on a personal note, happy birthday to our old friend Aurelian. the baguette. But besides that, and I think it's pertinent now, given that we find out, I hope we'll have some friendly news to talk about, a schedule of sorts, something to look forward to for Beşiktaş. But until then, let's go Beşiktaş! Peace! I hope I catch that one off guard with that. Someday.
Baba girdi. Baba çok babasın. Çok harikasın. Çok güzelsin. Harika.